So, hi everyone, this is Harsh. Again, I'm here again to present you our further AIML interviews series where we are bringing mentors from the Mang or the Tier 1 companies, which will help you to crack the interviews. As discussed in the last part, today we are having two of our brightest mentors. One is Miss Ketki and one is Miss Vishwa. So before moving ahead, let me tell you a little bit about MentorCart. So MentorCart is career and job tech platform where we bring a lot of mentors to help you crack your interviews so that you can pave your path to the companies like Mang and Tier 1. Uh, in this whole concept, mentor is the center of our pointers, where we will be discussing in details about the AI and ML part of the interview, where we can discuss a lot about this. So, why you should prefer MentorCart? MentorCart is your go-to career and job tech platform, and we are on a mission to make India the skill capital of the world. So, moving ahead, why this webinar we have hosted? The purpose of this webinar is very simple, which will help you to master AI and ML interviews. It will help you to provide the landscape and necessary mentorship where you will be guided by the mentors which is present on our platform. So discussing it in detail, the AI and ML job landscape is increasing day by day. As you can see that United States, America, China, UK, and India are leading from the forefront. So similarly, in future also these trends are going to be at the peak. This is the career or the you can say the salary packages here in India for the people those who are aspiring AI and NML engineers. So at the entry level, you will be having 3 LPA to 7 LPA of package per year. If you move further ahead, then AI and ML engineer, if you are going to be, then it can go up to 30 LPA per year. And furthermore, it can move up to 75 LPA or more if you become AI and ML research scientist. So why MentorCart? Why you should choose MentorCart? So only one reason, that is we are student centric, and all the sessions which will be happen, which is going to happen and will be happening in future, it will be live and will be taken by the industry mentors only. We are total in student centric, and we are here to promote the quality education so that, as our vision says, to make youth of India industry and future ready. So we are on that mission. So these are few pointers on which we stand for this program. That is instructors, that will be a live content, projects. We specifically deal with the projects where you will be taking care of 5+ projects, and going ahead, you will be having a capstone projects also. Not only this technical part, but we also dwell with soft skills, where the mentors from the fraternity of Dale Carnegie certifications will be going live and discussing how to crack the interviews through the soft skills part also. We will be having multiple master classes like this we are currently having. We will be giving you MentorCart mentorship program where 20 plus hours of high impact coaching by the senior mentors will be there. It will be a recorded one, and similarly more things to be add on. So this is the all which I want to tell you. Now moving ahead, I want to bring Vishwa and Ketki on the platform so that we can start our session with AI and ML interviews at Mang and Tier 1 companies. Hi, Vishwa.
Hi, Harsh. Thank you for the introduction.
Before moving ahead, I want to give a little bit of discussion about uh, a description about Vishwa. Vishwa is currently SDE, software development engineer at AWS. She is currently leading for the AI part in the AWS. Moving ahead with Ketki. Ketki is currently AI product manager at Oracle, and she is alumni of NIT Silchar. So all of you, welcome to the portal and platform as well. So now it's totally yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, before we start with the agenda, Ketki, do you want to talk about your journey getting into AIML and then
Yeah.
as the product manager at Oracle?
Yeah, so I think my journey has been very similar to yours, Vishwa. So what I did was I did bachelor's in computer science and engineering from NIT Silchar in Assam, India. And during my third year, I was introduced to courses like neural networks and machine learning. So at that time, I got really interested in the mathematics and statistics part of what this course had to offer. So I did a couple of projects on mathematical modeling with my professor. I took it as an elective, dive deeper into it, and then when I was hired by Oracle, I was working in Hyderabad. So we were working for Oracle Hospitality, which is where we were building a core platform for hotel operations and distribution. And within 2 years, I got an opportunity to lead the AI team because we were just putting together a new team and we were adding AI to our strategy, to our product strategy. So this is when I was introduced to projects, ML projects on a bigger scale for these MNCs, and that's how I broke into the field.
Yeah, that's very inspiring. Cool. Uh, do you want to get started?
Yeah, I think I can start with the agenda. So, can we please share the screen? Yeah. So, hello everyone. I'm glad you're interested in AI ML because this is one of the best fields to be in, and if we are in it for the right reasons, then it's going to be a very rewarding experience. So, let's look at the agenda for this session today. So I've divided the whole session into three parts, which is how do you first get the interview, and then once you have the interview call, how do you ace it, and what is the mindset with which you can approach this, and then once you get the job, your work does not stop there because you still have to think a lot about how do you navigate through your career and make the most out of that role. So we will be discussing about each of these, but if you have any questions as we go, please send them in the chat and we'll answer them either during the session or towards the end. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So the first part, let's discuss this. How do you get an interview? Let's go to the next slide. So, want to talk about a couple of best practices that have worked for me when I was trying to get different interview calls, and all these strategies you can still figure out what works for you, but these are just some of the best guidelines to keep in mind. So, the first part is if you don't have prior experience in AI ML, this is a field which requires you to have some basic knowledge of its working. And so if you don't have prior work experience or prior academic experience in this field, you have to build your portfolio because it always shows the recruiter that you are interested and you are doing whatever you can on your own to gain the knowledge that is required to get into this field. So, building your portfolio, you can work on a few side projects, you can participate in hackathons, you can go to different Kaggle data sets, analyze them, and talk about them, document why you reached, why you chose a certain model, what are the different models that you considered, what were the insights that you could draw from that particular data, and you can document all of this somewhere. So either upload it to your GitHub, or if you have time, you can also host your own website on a particular domain and you can talk about the projects and link your GitHub in that. So whatever works for you, depending on how much time you can dedicate towards this, it's important to have some sort of a portfolio where you can showcase that you're working with these data sets, you're analyzing the data sets, and you're documenting all the results you have. So that shows a lot of dedication on your part, and it really helps you stand out from the other candidates in the eyes of the recruiter. The next is when you're tailoring your resume, it has to be customized for the particular company or role that you're applying for. So what I've seen a lot of folks do is they have the same resume template that goes to every company that they're applying for, but that's a very inefficient strategy because every company's job description, even though it's for the same AI ML engineer, it can differ, the expectations can differ. And so you have to really drill down in the job description, identify the keywords, and see if you can relate that to some of your past experience and projects, and then customize your resume to be specific for that company or role. So it might require just a few minor changes to do that customization, but you have to scan your resume before you send it to a particular company after you have thoroughly analyzed what the job description says and what the expectation is. Also, the template that you choose, the more simpler it is, the better. I've seen a lot of people go for very complicated resume templates, which makes it very difficult for someone to understand what this person's profile is in the first scan. So ensure that your resume template is is ATS friendly. So when we talk about ATS, it's the application tracking system, and whenever you apply to any company, this is the first layer of resume scan. It's not reviewed by a human first, it's reviewed by the system first. So you have to have all the information and so you have to make it ATS friendly. Then, similar to resume, you can customize your cover letter, send it, explain why you're best for the job. And it's always better to get a referral when you want to get an interview, because then you have higher chances of landing the interview and higher chances of being considered for that role. Just blind applications might not work. So you can network with people on LinkedIn, send them personalized invites, and try to get their referrals. Another hack that has worked really well for me is applying to jobs through hackathons and conferences. So this is a very good strategy. If you are attending hackathons or conferences in the AIML domain, you'll see that a lot of Mang and tier one companies are sponsors of these, and they allow you the opportunity to do one to one networking with the sponsors. This is where you have to pitch yourself, send in your resume, and you can make connections through those conferences and hackathons and even get referrals. So you can, whenever you go to a conference or hackathon and attend it, also ensure if you can talk to some sponsor and get a job offer or at least get an interview. So this will work really well if you are vigilant of what opportunities that particular event has to offer. And then networking is a very crucial aspect. I would not only recommend networking with people to get referrals, but also networking with people to understand, networking with folks in the industry to understand what is the current trend, how are people working, what are the specific aspects of consideration that they would need to keep in their mind for a role, and understand what is the work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. That gives you a better edge on understanding how you can prepare for those interviews. So this is about how to get the interview. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So the next part is, once you have the interview call, which is sometimes the toughest part. Once you have the interview call with you, how do you ace those interviews? So let's go to the next slide. So, talk about a few interview tips. And again, this is just to be approached from a mindset perspective. There are very specific interview preparation guidelines that you can get from MentorCart. But I am here to talk about, to give you a holistic picture on what you can do to better ace the interview. So, when we talk about the interview, how does the interview proceed? The first kind of round that you might have is they might give you some assignment, some offline assignment. They might give you a case study, so you have to work through that. Then there might be a telephone interview where they call you and you're just supposed to explain your work projects and It depends on how well you can articulate your experience and showcase that you have the prior knowledge on this in this domain, or maybe you've done some side projects, so you showcase your experience through that. And after that, there are a series of technical interviews that happen on site, and then there might also be behavioral interviews and HR rounds towards the end, once you clear the previous rounds. So we are going to talk about what are these interviews and how do you what are some things that you have to keep in your mind when you are facing these interviews. So whenever we talk about the technical interviews, it's important that if you have done AI/ML projects before, you have to showcase your ML projects effectively. And you can do this by practicing in the mock interviews. So you can just review your resume and you can go through your past projects, try explaining them to your friends, try explaining them to a person who's already working in the ML domain, and see if you can better that story. So it's always, when you're talking about an ML project, you're telling a story, you're talking about a pain point, you're talking about how you were motivated to solve it, and based on that, what were the tools and techniques that you used, and what was the result, what was the impact of that project. And you have to perfect that story by practicing it with many folks. So it's important that you showcase your ML project, and it should not look like just a college project, but something that you're really passionate about, where you were able to deliver significant results. And a lot of times there are also the whiteboard and online coding assessments, where you're supposed to either virtually or on site, you are given a whiteboard and you're supposed to explain the workings of different algorithms on the whiteboard. So this is again something that is, you get better at it by practicing it. The first time you get on a whiteboard and try these things, it will not be very easy, but as you practice more and more, it gets easier to put your thoughts on a whiteboard without feeling really nervous. So you have to practice for all of these, and then a basic knowledge of data structures and algorithms is important. So you can read books on it, you can visit YouTube videos and understand it, but you have to get into the practice of learning every day, so that you are on track with these algorithms and you know how they work. The next is, you also have to know the concepts of machine learning, deep learning, statistics, and probability. So for machine learning, you it would be very helpful to have a basic understanding of the different algorithms. For deep learning, look at what are the different types of neural networks, how can you learn them, how can you apply them, what are certain disadvantages with the techniques that you might be taking over here, and how are neural networks trained. So you can go into these concepts within deep learning, you can do courses to do these better. And then you can go through statistics and probability and understand the basic concepts. So don't go as deep as needed, but at least the basic understanding of what these concepts are and how the mathematics works in different algorithms is very important, to showcase that you have a holistic understanding of the whole domain. Next is, you might also face system design interviews in the technical interviews. So this is where it will be very helpful for you to understand how are different products operationalized at scale. Because when you are analyzing data sets on Kaggle, or when you're doing college projects, the data set is usually very clean. It's not very close to the industry data sets that we have in the organizations. So when you're doing system design, you need to understand how are different products built, what is their architecture, how are they operationalized in bigger companies, what is the scale of data that we're dealing with. And it's important to understand the basic techniques like caching, and you might also look at different types of architectures. Next is, you do as many mock interviews as you can, because sometimes your concepts might be on point but you might not be able to explain them very efficiently. So you have to practice it 1,000 times in order to be confident in front of the interview, especially in a very pressure filled environment, but at the same time be able to explain what you're thinking in a way that the other person can understand, and without a lot of hesitation and awkward pauses in between. The next is behavioral interview. So this is where a lot of folks might take this very lightly, but behavioral interview speaks a lot about, not only are you able to technically understand the project, but you can also communicate very well, and that's a very important attribute to have for Mang and Tier One companies. So when you're looking at behavioral interview, you talk about your past experience, talk about your college, talk about your past work experience, but you have to give real world examples. So it's very important to again have those stories in your mind, because you might have a basic idea of what you want to talk about. So if the interview is asking you, tell us about a time where you faced a project failure, so you might have a basic idea of which project you want to talk about, but then you have to explain the project, explain the situation, explain why you failed, and explain what you learned from it. So there are multiple strategies to it, but unless you perfect that story in your mind, it is difficult for the other person to understand and be impressed with what you're saying. So practice giving real world examples from your experience. You can even have a Google Doc where you go through the common questions asked in behavioral interview, and maybe have some keywords on what experience you're going to discuss. Having that in your mind, just a basic mind map of what you will be discussing, how you will be sharing your how you will be demonstrating your work ethic and all these skills, and how would you handle questions about project failures. All these are very useful, because then during the interview, when that question is actually given to you, you're more confident and prepared in your head, and it makes it easier to explain your situation without going too much into detail, but at the same time giving them a complete picture. And then there are certain general things that you need to keep in your mind whenever you're going for an interview. Always remember to ask questions to the interviewer, because it's not just them evaluating you, you are evaluating that company too. It's very important to be in a company that suits with that aligns with your interests and goals, and the culture is conducive to your progress. So you always have to research that company, research that role, and keep certain questions in your mind, because at the end of the interview, you can ask these questions to the interviewer, and if you ask very specific questions that showcase that you've done your research about the company, you can stand out from the other candidates. Also, when you are explaining anything during the interview, any conversation that you might have, don't just get into the habit of throwing keywords on the other person. A lot of people that I have interviewed for these roles have done just that. They don't have a basic understanding of what are the different MLAI techniques, but they just throw some keywords to sound knowledgeable about it. So unless you understand the basics, you'll not be able to explain complex concepts, and the interviewer is very good to determine that. So even if you're not knowledgeable about something, talk about what you know and be honest during the interview, because that gives you a better transparency, and the other person will respect you and give you chances, give you hints to arrive at the answer for a question. So explain complex concepts in a way that a layman can understand, because that showcases that you're very well versed with this subject. So can we go to the next slide? Now, the last part, which is your work does not stop after getting the job. And over here, there are some career guidelines that I want to give you based on the experience that I had. Once you get the data science job, very well done. You've aced your interviews. You need a break. You need to celebrate. But once all of that is done, you need to get back on track with where your career is headed, and you always have to take the responsibility of driving your career yourself. And there are different ways that you can do this. First is you talk to your manager about what is the expectation from this role, what is the career progression in this role, how do I ensure that my team is successful, what are the different projects that we are working on, can I work on this project instead, this aligns with my interest. So you have those kind of conversations with your manager. You can even set weekly one to one where you're meeting, maybe depending on your manager's bandwidth, meeting once every week, once every 15 days, to discuss any feedback that they might have for you, any scope of improvement for you, and what you're already doing well that you can continue. And this shows the manager that you're invested in your career, you're invested about your progress, and you're here to learn and improve. So it's always recommended that you have these regular conversations with your manager, with your team members, with your stakeholders. Next is you can also read a lot of books and keep doing courses. So once you get into the habit of studying every day, don't let that go once you get the job, because there's so much happening in this industry every day. So you have to keep following through conferences, through different research papers and books and courses. You have to understand what is happening in this field at every point of time, and stay up to date with everything that's happening. Next is you can attend meetups, you can attend conferences. Sometimes your company might sponsor the conference for you, so you can attend meetups and conferences in your domain. Keep an eye on that and keep tracking them, because these are again time sensitive. So you can later even speak at these conferences, but start by attending these and understanding what people talk about. It's also important to connect with people in your domain and have them in your network, because that way you get to learn a lot through their journey, through their stories as well. As I said, staying up to date on latest trends is very important. Your work, your role, how successful you are in the AI/ML domain will be determined based on how knowledgeable you are, and you have to. That will only happen when you are aware of what is happening in the industry, and it's changing rapidly every day. So you have to get into the habit of at least doing some weekly study, or if you can study daily, that's well and good. So reading research papers, dedicate at least 15 to 20 minutes of your day. I know that reading research papers is not something, it's not very easy, but once you get into the habit of reading those papers, you get good at skimming through papers and getting their gist and understanding what is something that I can learn from this and apply at my work. Then looking at different products, analyzing their architecture. So there are thousands of YouTube videos on this, but understanding how are they using AI/ML to drive decisions, and what are some things that I can learn from this product or from this company. And Also, when you're preparing for the interview, as I discussed, you learn about certain data sets, but they're already clean. They don't simulate the real industry data sets that we actually face in our work experience. So what you have to do is understand how models are operationalized at scale, understand the mechanisms that go behind that, and keep reading a lot about that, because it's easier. It will give you a very good learning experience, and you'll be able to relate better at work when you can read about those and apply them at work. So these are some of the strategies that I wanted to share today. And I think now we are good to take the questions. Vishwa, if you want to add anything to what I discussed, please do so.
No, I think you gave a very good overview of the entire process and even took it to beyond getting a job and how to progress your career. So that was a great talk. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a few questions in the chat. You can go in order.
Hmm.
Do you want to pick the questions or should I go ahead?
Yeah, you can pick anyone you want.
Okay, let's just start in order. Should I focus on solo projects or group projects? This was asked by Sushil Kumar. In perspective of interviews, which ones get more concentration?
I don't think it makes a difference. It depends on what your other projects have been. So if you have only worked on solo projects, it's important to work on group projects as well, because that showcases your ability to work well in a team. But if you've already worked on a lot of group projects, then it's fine to do some side projects yourself.
Yeah, basically have a good mix of the two so that it shows your team playing abilities as well as independence.
Right.
Cool. The next one is from Meghna. Does a BSc computer science graduate get a chance to get into a data science job as a fresher?
I think it does not depend on your background at all. Anyone can get into data science as long as you are dedicated to learning and reading every day.
Yeah, the course that we have at Mentacart is going to give a good overview of the different aspects of getting into a data science job. Like we cover ML fundamentals, data structure, system design. So that should also give you a good opportunity to get into the domain. Is it true that companies are likely to hire engineering students? Oh, yeah, it's similar to the previous one. It's by the same person.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, Next question is by Abhijit Gupta. What is ideal for first year students, Android development or AI ML, if you've not started development yet?
So it's not about what's ideal for a first year student, it's about what's ideal for you. And that is a decision that you'll have to take based on your interests. I would recommend doing side projects in both if you're confused, and then seeing which one resonates with you better and then continuing with that.
Yeah, and if you're new to development, then you don't need to start with Android. You can just learn programming, say Python or Java. Just get a feel of it, and then you're open to both Android as well as AIML. Um, What will be the market trends of AI ML after 4 years with perspective of first year students?
Mm, don't know if I can predict the trends that well, but I was going through the OpenAI Dev Day keynote yesterday, and it talked a lot about how generative AI is going to own the future. So that might be something that you take into account. You can keep attending these conference keynotes and understand. They are all published on YouTube usually, so you can use those to understand what the trends might be, and it's important to specialize in a particular domain so you can continue with your AI journey, but look at these keynotes to understand what is the specific topic within AIML that you would want to focus on.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's really hard to predict given that the domain is moving so fast.
Yeah.
Like nobody predicted generative AI and large language models would just be the buzz suddenly. So that was out of the blue and it's really hard to predict. But what is always helpful is having a good foundation. So as long as you have good computer science fundamentals, understand the basics of you know how to code. You don't have to be an expert at all of these, but just having an overview would be helpful so that no matter what the trend is, you can pick that up. Um, okay. The question is from Suman. How much should we focus on DSA or knowing Python would be enough? And what is needed to clear coding round interviews in ML interviews?
Yeah, I think DSA is always important. It's the foundation. And as Vishwa was mentioning, if your foundation is not right, no one is going to hire you. So you have to focus on DSA. Only once you're well versed with that, then move on to AIML.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um,
What will be the roadmap for beginners?
yeah, can you elaborate on the question? I don't understand what you mean by roadmap for beginners, sort of.
Yeah, are we talking about the career development roadmap or something like that?
Cool. Let's wait for that. I'm just going through the rest to see if we've already answered them or they're different. How can we do group projects and where can we find groups for these projects?
Yeah, so I think if you start with hackathons, you get a good group to focus on some projects, or you can collaborate with people on Kaggle as well. Sometimes you see people sharing similar comments as you when they've analyzed a data set. So you can do networking on LinkedIn by finding those people. If you are a college student, then you can get your friends interested in some idea and work on a group project together.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, there are long questions. Let me read those. Okay. This is by Dhanashri. I'm a third year student in AI ML engineering. I want to proceed with a career in ML and I have a strong foundation. What should I focus on? More detailing as per job perspectives.
So I would recommend getting some mock interviews depending on the organization, what aspects are focused on differs. But if you're good with the basics and if you've already done projects, you can explain them well, you have a basic understanding of all these, then do mock interviews to understand what are your strengths and what are some areas that you need to improve on.
Yeah, mock interviews cannot be emphasized enough. True. Okay. What is the level of ML questions for data scientist freshers? Are they basic, intermediate?
I don't know if there's a level for those questions. It again depends on your interviewer, but they'll always look for experience in terms of your projects and in terms of your courses or anything that you've done. So you do have to showcase a lot of initiative in undertaking these projects and learning about them, not just through the courses, but by doing. So the level of ML questions, you can't guarantee that for sure, but again, do a lot of mock interviews to understand where you fall and how well you can take those questions.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's important to tailor your preparation to your company that you're interviewing for. There are companies like if you go for some smaller startups who will probably grill you on your ML fundamentals a lot. There are companies who don't care about your ML knowledge as long as you have a data structure foundation well set. So you need to go through Lead Code or just go through Glassdoor and see what kind of questions are asked by this company and then tailor your preparation to that. Okay. Um, let's see. Can you talk about some common hackathons? Do you know any famous ones?
Um, Not any particular name that comes to my mind, but what I do is I usually go to this website called as DevPost, where all the hackathons are hosted, and that helps me keep track of what are some hackathons coming. So they happen almost every week. You can participate in any one.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was some being hosted by the government of India when I was in college. Those were also really good, but I don't remember the names. Cool. Um, Harsh, do you want to take over now? I think we
Yeah,
answered most of the questions.
yeah. So I mean, I'm summing it up basically. So here are many freshers. I mean, those who are into their third year or fourth year of their engineering, and they want to get a clear-cut roadmap that how to land up into AI and ML job initially. Although you have told in the PPT, but
Mhm.
currently they are asking for a single roadmap how to start and where to end.
How to start. So it will remain similar to what I already discussed. You have to start with, if you are starting from scratch, you start with data structures and algorithms, learn that first, do side projects to understand what AI ML is. Are you interested in that domain? And then dive deeper into all the algorithms that you're using to derive insights out of data, and then understanding the mathematics and statistics behind it. So you start from there, then you do mock interviews, and then you go back and work on things that needs improvement. So you have to do it in an incremental way so that it's not overwhelming, but that's how it starts. Vishwa, do you want to add to that?
No, I think that makes sense. I don't have anything else to add.
Actually, whole of the questions, I mean, I just checked 8 to 10 questions are totally related to that only. That is
Okay.
roadmap. What is a roadmap? So,
Yeah.
is NLP going to be the boom in the future? And how should I go about it?
NLP is already booming.
Yeah.
Yeah, you use ChatGPT for everything that is needed to automate your work. So that's already NLP at its peak. But we see a lot more improvements. We see that ChatGPT can generate longer sentences now. They can understand bigger prompts. So there's always scope for bigger and better things. There's also multimodal training coming up where your input is text but your output is an image. So these kinds of variations in the existing fields are coming up now, and it's hard to predict how it will change, but definitely keep reading about the research so you know what's booming right now.
So, one question, I guess it is the last one. Varsha is asking that from 3.5 years, I'm working on data and ocean project and also self-driven car project. So, can I add as AI-based work into this profile?
You want to take this, Ketki?
Oh, yeah, I'm just thinking about it. So I still think you would need more AI projects. You can, if you're interested in AI, you can talk about that. You can get into that. But I would suggest doing more AI focused projects to get better experience. I've also worked on self-driven car projects, but it's not very close to what an AI ML project would be expecting out of you. So you won't learn those techniques through this. You have to go to these projects where you can look at a data set, go through the data pre-processing, and then work on which model you want to use for that data. So any project that allows you to get into these basics, you can add maybe one or two projects and then portray your profile as an AI based profile.
Okay, great. So all those who are asking for when the classes or the full course is going to start, so we are planning, and it is already on the, deadline that it is going to start just after the Diwali holidays. That means post 20th of this month. So those who are already registered in the webinar, you will be receiving a link where you can register for the full program, which will be, you can say 100 hours plus project led, and will be catered and take care by Vishwa and as well as uh, other mentors in the series. Can you give a clarity over data science and data analyst role? Can someone start with data analyst and move to data scientist profile?
You can definitely do that. I've seen a lot of people do it. But if you're interested in data scientist role, you can directly target that too. You don't have to, there's no set path that you have to start from data analyst or that one is easier over the other. You can directly apply to data scientist roles and start preparing for it.
So now I don't find any kind of new question. Uh, Anybody who wants to ask any further question, please put in the chat box, or we will be moving towards.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
see one more question. Can
yeah.
we learn TensorFlow or PyTorch for deep learning by Himanshu? I would say TensorFlow is not being used a lot these days. Most people are moving to PyTorch, and even Google itself started a JAX framework, which is like an upgrade to TensorFlow. So definitely go for PyTorch, um, and pick up on new frameworks as they come up. Yeah, I think that's it.
Uh, but company hire mostly experienced candidate for data scientist. What?
So there's a way to showcase that you have experience through your projects, and I'm sure if you keep trying, eventually you can break into it. I've seen a lot of freshers directly they get hired for a data scientist role. It's just that the bar is higher and you have to prove yourself more, but it's not that it's impossible. You can definitely do it.
Frankie is asking what model does a company prefer the most in ML, like in our resume. Actually,
Didn't understand the question.
yeah.
What's
I think which ML models are usually recommended to practice is what
maybe.
it means. Yeah, it's probably it. There's no preference as such as what I've seen, as long as you have basic understanding of where to apply a model and why you use that in your particular project or use case, that's fine.
Okay, I guess all the questions. No, I've been hearing a lot about RTT, which is going to take over NLP these days. Can I get a small brief in 2 or 3 sentences about it? RTT.
Do you mean real time text? Yeah, I don't have a lot of information on this actually.
Neither. But we can read research papers about it, and you should too.
Yeah, there's so much going on, it's impossible to keep tabs on everything.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I guess we have covered all of the questions over here. Okay, so thank you, Ketki, and thank you, Vishwa, for taking out the time and to guide the students over this AI and NML interviews. We will be doing furthermore webinars like this in coming weeks. So stay tuned for further webinar and the schedule. All the details about the programs and upcoming sessions will land up in your WhatsApp. So please check it by today. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.